Hi, Paul. Thanks very much for taking part in the Business Spotlight series. As always, I'm going to hand it straight across to you to introduce yourself and what you do.
Hi there, Ed, and thank you for inviting us along today. So my name is Paul Nicholls. I'm the chief exec and co-founder of two businesses. The first business that I set up was Panoptic Consultancy Group. Panoptic Consultancy Group consists of a law firm, Panoptic Legal, a consultancy firm that specialises in cybersecurity, data protection, privacy. Does quite a bit in the compliance space and risk management space, and works for a number of different industries, all the way from fintech to basically insurances, shipping, construction, mining, and and many others.
Hmm.
And that business continues on, and and does well. And my other company is Recycle It Global, which I co-founded back in May 2021. Recycle It Global was really a business where I started to see things in the world that I didn't agree with, predominantly around the sustainable use of materials, mining and the impacts that mining has, and the way that we deal with waste. So we started to look at the technological solutions that we could put into the industry to make a better use of the waste products that are being produced from really four key waste producers. One was basically excavation burrow pits, the other one was marine dredgings, the other was mining waste, and then construction demolition arisings. And the idea being to extract that waste as best as possible, take the very nasty chemicals that are out of it, such as in hydrocarbons or things on the periodic table, such as in heavy metals, and then give back to the global infrastructure in a clean material to ultimately lessen the impact that we have on on the planet, and create a circular economy. So yeah, that's our business.
Fantastic. So obviously, well, lots of things there in the first business, but I'll focus just on Rig just now. So that's great, obviously, to do things to help the planet. So thank you for that. And whereabouts do you do it? Is it just the UK? Are you doing it sort of overseas too?
No, so we're a global company, Recycle It Global. So we're set up in the UK. The UK is effectively what you would call the top co, and we have sites that are progressing forward now in the UK. We have sites in Cornwall. We're addressing sites in London and in and around the London boroughs. And really, it was a few of us that came together to bring the very best in technology, human IP. And bring that into the business to help move things forward. But the aspiration is to address the global problem. It's a global waste crisis, but it's not just a waste crisis, it's also a crisis in terms of our mineral resource. We have an ever-growing economy at the moment, a global economy, and the economy is driven by infrastructure, and obviously, infrastructure has a high demand on those construction-based materials. So, it's not just about basically addressing those problems around the waste sectors and around the construction materials sectors. It's also about creating that circular economy to try and upskill, in organizations to forward plan how they manage their waste, and what's the end of life use of that product, and when's its design life, and how can we integrate that into its design process. So yeah, all over the world, and everywhere from the Middle Eastern countries to Africa to in Europe. So
Fantastic. And then obviously you started May 21. What are the aspirations for the company in the next 5 years?
So the business is doing really well. So a lot of it at the moment is is actually progressing sites. We're an investment-led company. We have quite ambitious targets to install 20 plants over 10 years. That's 2 plants per year. And really, this is is starting off in the UK. Obviously, the knowledge, the human IP is here in the UK. We're already addressing some of the other sort of markets overseas. And what we'll start to do is we'll start to step outside of the UK next year, and start to take the technology and the business IP that we have here, and really sort of take that overseas and work with them. But there's a bit more there's a bit more around it, and essentially it's not just about actually taking the waste and then repurposing it and giving back construction materials. It's also about looking for those downstream activities that can further benefit. So it could be, providing sustainable materials to, other sorts of products such as reef cubes or curbstones. It could be basically, helping cut down on CO2 emissions globally by reducing the impacts that primary rock quarrying has, and also the net effect of transport on the roads when they're taking material to landfills and farther away. So there's lots of different different aspects to the business.
Interesting. And then on the other side of that, what are the challenges for that for the industry you're in?
So some of the biggest challenges that we face is regulation. Regulation, so that comes in two forms. That's planning and permitting. When you're dealing with complex wastes, such as things that are on the periodic tables, your antimonies, lead, your coppers, and so on and so forth, these do require quite advanced processing techniques to be able to effectively reduce the mass. And ultimately what we try and do is capture that in a sub 63 micron size particle and then concentrate it to effectively remove it. We're not going to make things on the periodic table disappear. So it's all about reducing that mass and then encapsulating that somewhere downstream or finding another purpose for it. But that very process comes with a lot of due diligence required for the regulation side of things. We also, we have challenges in terms of the planning process. Obviously, the UK planning process is difficult at the best of times. And where these plants work, it's all around, where infrastructure is growing. So we try and place these plants in strategic locations where we are seeing that infrastructure demand. Because ultimately, where there's an infrastructure demand, there's also a construction material demand. But in trying to site these things where it's economically advantageous, but also tries to cut down on the transport movements and and other things that affect that, can be difficult at times.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like I'm also getting a bit of a recap of chemistry from back in my school days here in some of these parts. And look, for yourself, it's been a couple of years. What would you say has been the biggest learning for this business that you've had as a business owner, or it might be from your years before as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's some of the biggest learning curves that we've had is predominantly around the capital markets at the moment and the way that money is working around the world, and some of the challenges that we face. I think the world is a bit of an unstable place at the moment in terms of its financial systems and and obviously interest rates and everything else. So it's been a learning curve navigating how that works in its current volatile state. It's been a challenge, but it's one that every business is going through at the moment, and understanding how those capital markets are reacting to world events. But it's a challenge, but it's nothing that can't be fixed.
Indeed. And what is it that keeps you going? What's the source of your inspiration to keep going through different challenges?
I think there's an intrinsic drive in me. I come from a very different background. I have a degree in accountancy and finance and a master's in commercial management, but I never started out in life doing that. I come from a very different background. I was actually a British commando. I did 15 years with the Ministry of Defence. And after that, I had this drive and passion to really sort of address some of the things that I thought I could change in the world, and really build businesses that were sustainable, environmentally friendly, and did good for the planet, which is a big thing. So I would say one of my biggest drivers today is actually doing things for the right reasons, and and trying to actually leave a lasting mark on the planet to say that we've done something good, and I think that was driven from my time working for the Ministry of Defence, and now that's followed through into where we are today.
That's great. Thank you. I'm glad I asked you that. Thanks for sharing. Look, and as a final question, is there any news or any offer you'd like to extend to the audience?
I think, I think, advice and offerings into the audience. I think, it's one of those things. Business can be quite disheartening at times, particularly with, in volatile markets and the way that the world is playing out. But I would say perseverance is, is the key here. And, I think business leaders today are doing an exceptional job of navigating quite a complex, state of affairs. So it's great to see that happening, and it's great to see British business do really, really well. But I think, it's a case of really staying strong, even in the face of adversity, and really sort of powering through. But I think there's so much support out there now for businesses that need that help and that advice. There's always a solution to every problem, and I would always sort of say that. Again, I pull that through from my career in the Ministry of Defence. As some things sometimes can look a bit challenging, but there is always a way out. It's just about finding that way, and and looking for it. And I would say that surrounding yourself with good people is always a good move forward, and making sure that those people's views align to yours and the business ideas. And I think it's business nowadays is about building a team. And I know myself as the CEO. It's more about the team, and it's about the people, that's what's going to drive the business through to success.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. It's been great to find out what you do. Thanks for, as I said, doing things that do make the place the world a better place, and thank you for your efforts on that. And look forward to seeing what the impacts you can make in the coming years too.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Ed. That's brilliant.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers.